I'm Haley. Welcome to the whole podcast. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the show. Hi, everyone. My name is Haley Korf. I am your vision impaired host, and we are excited about our guest today. We have Brandon and Lindsey from Beyond This. Thank you so much for being here today. Long time coming.
Really, really excited to be here with you. Thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, do you want to explain a little bit about what Beyond This is so that we can understand that a little bit more?
At Beyond This, we're building a digital ecosystem of support for interabled couples who are navigating life after acquiring a disability. Um, the work that we do takes place in several different places. We work directly with clinicians, OTs, PTs, RTs, and so what we found after Brandon had a pretty severe ischemic stroke in 2017 was that the care we got was incredible, and his recovery took place primarily in outpatient therapy.
Okay.
And when we got discharged, we realized, oh wow, we have to figure out how to live life in this new body and in this new relationship. And therapy's over, and there's no access to any curated or clear support for what that process is like. And so that was almost 9 years ago. And we are now fortunately in a position to um, build something that can help other folks move through the recovery process in a way that centers their relationship, which is super important to stabilize folks and optimize their long term outcomes. So we work with therapists directly. We work in the classroom with students, and we provide all of our services to um, folks with disabilities and their care partners for free.
Wow. Okay. I will say, I think that part is missing in I don't even know the bigger umbrella name for it, but when you're dealing with somebody and a couple family members even, that's not talked about after the fact. And so I really appreciate that that's something you're helping with
Mhm.
because it is needed. It is needed.
Thank you.
You said that your stroke happened about 9 years ago?
Yep.
Okay. And then so what does it look like when you're first meeting an individual and their partner? Um do you guys have like a blueprint or do you just kind of go in and see kind of like do a mini intake kind of situation? What does that all look like?
We provide services on a few different levels. So, um, people who are discharged from treatment are on all different parts of the spectrum of their recovery. Some people are ready to jump right into conversations like ours. Some people are not for many years post discharge. So, the digital aspect of our service offering um, gives folks access to perspective, support, activities, ideas, um, conversation starters as they are able based on the stage that they're in their recovery and their particular circumstances. When we meet a couple who wants to engage directly, most of the time we do group um, coaching. We tend to do fairly little actually one-on-one coaching with folks, but in our group program, we have a 10-week program that moves through everything from personal identity reclamation and reconstruction to relationship and reclamation, reconstruction. And one of the parts of recovery and especially relationships that is um, pretty frequently left out entirely from the conversation is um, the part about sexual health and sexual relations with partners. And so in person, that's one of the things that differentiates our services is that that part of recovery is such an important part of relationships and a critical uh, area for folks to get support in that is still a little too taboo to be addressed as it should be in the clinic and really in the public too.
Mhm.
So I don't know, Brandon, if you want to maybe say more about that.
Well, I will say that when we first meet the person, it's a lot about figuring out themselves still because trauma takes your identity. So
Yes.
you have to find the new version of yourself and be able to live with yourself within yourself before you can have a happy relationship with anyone else. And so we start with the mental and all the emotional things that go with it. And so that's what we first, when we meet them, we have to go with first.
Right, right, yeah. And sometimes even after a trauma of losing maybe your eyesight or your ability to walk, people aren't ready to do that right away. Like,
Oh
it's
no,
really hard.
it took me a while.
It took me a while
And,
too.
and
Yeah.
and what happens is I was a football father.
Okay.
And so I can't football father the same way. So I had to turn into a mental coach
Mhm.
more than a physical coach. And those things all take time. I was a football star growing up.
Mhm.
And so I football's my identity. And so it was tough to figure out the new way to do it. And rehab doesn't help with that part of it at all. And so
Yeah.
they just kind of sent me home and didn't know how to daddy. I didn't know how to hug my wife. I didn't know how to be a husband. I didn't know how to do all these things, but I'm expected to do them still. And so that's part of the burden building part that a lot of disabled people carry is they don't know how to do those things anymore.
Right, right. And I will say that in the disability community, one of the main things that is talked about is that we don't want to be a burden to family members or friends.
Right.
And even though I know that I'm not a burden, I still think about that every day. I'm like, what can I do to make this easier? What can I, because I don't drive. And so I always feel bad when other people have to help with
Sure.
that. But, you know,
And it feels like for some reason, the ones who help the most before their disability are the ones that need the help afterwards.
right.
And so we don't like taking the help. Well, I didn't like taking the help.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I kept telling everybody, I don't need your help. And then I would figure out I basically do need your help. I said, excuse me, but I do need your help. And so it took a lady at a Dollar Tree checking me.
Really?
She offered me $20
Uh-huh.
to pay for my kids' stuff. And I was like, ma'am, just because I'm in a wheelchair doesn't mean I'm broke. And she said, you shut up.
Oh.
You're going to take this money and let me bless you.
Oh, I
And
love
so
that.
I was like, okay. And like from then on, when I left, I said, okay, some people are just trying to help. And so, like, that's a way to figure it out. A lot of times people are just trying to help.
Right.
And I like to ask for the help now
Yes.
more so than you just help me.
Right.
But I like to figure out I can't do it or I can't do it yet
Yes.
before you just help me.
Right. Yeah. No, I think for me, when I was struggling to decide if I should ask for help or not, it was really hard because I didn't know what I was capable of yet.
Right.
And once I started, figuring that out on my own and making mistakes and tripping on my face because I still do that. But like once you figure out what works for you and what you can and can't do, then I felt better about asking for help.
And that's the hard part about stroke life because every day I can do something different.
Oh,
So
okay.
if we wake up in a routine, which we do sometimes, she thinks, well, I'm gonna grab this leg and help him. And I'm gonna say, dude, I can do my own leg. I don't need you to grab my leg. But she doesn't know that
Right.
that is a thing I can do. And sometimes I don't even know. It just happens one day.
Yeah, that's
And
fair.
so it's every day is different in stroke life.
Huh.
And so
I did not realize that. And I like the term stroke life. That's catchy.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, okay, I didn't realize. That's so then how do you navigate through that determining what can be done during a day and what can't be done? How do you approach that as a partner?
With curiosity, Uh, Sometimes reminders not to make assumptions.
That's a tough one. That's a tough one.
And it's one of the kind of, this may sound strange, but it's kind of one of the cool things about living with stroke as a disability because that neuroplasticity brings something new over time. So
Right.
that makes curiosity easy for me. It's really interesting to look at the recovery process from that curious perspective and be inspired a little bit by how fascinating the and powerful the human brain is,
Yes.
and the power of our thoughts and the degree of change that we can instigate in our own bodies physically through the thinking that we do.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, one note on the burden part,
Yeah.
um, from a caregiver perspective, one of the things that we find ourselves telling our clients often is, especially early in the recovery process with an injury like a stroke, that um, the progress is what, and the commitment to continuing to try to strive for whatever's next is what lightens the burden,
Mm.
and making a choice to strive for what's next as opposed to settling for whatever today is, makes the caregiving part of the journey so much lighter.
Hmm.
And speaking to the kind of routine part of it,
Mhm.
yeah, I can stand up and I can take a certain amount of steps.
Okay.
Some days I can't stand at all
Hmm.
because my legs just tell me no. So
Okay.
the routine that day, maybe you have to really help me.
Mhm.
And so it's all subject to change. And so, like, you just have to figure it out as you go along.
Right. Right. Oh, wow. I can't even imagine trying to figure out what works and what doesn't work for a day. That seems difficult.
Yeah, sometimes I figure out when I'm on the floor laying there because I fell. And so I try not to do that with as much, but that is sometimes how I
I
figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah, I've done my fair share of falling for sure and running into walls. Mhm.
Yeah, you just gotta learn to roll with the
Yeah.
punches a little bit, right?
The
Yep.
walls in our house have a bunch of holes from my wheelchair, and like it happens. And so
It does. But I think one of the biggest things for me through my disability journey is to find the humor in it. Because if I didn't, I'd be crying.
yeah, you
So,
have to. If you can't laugh at yourself, and you can never master this life.
yeah.
The last time I fell, I was thinking, man, you're standing strong. And then I was calling for help. And
Yeah.
so it was like,
Just kidding.
as soon as you think you're doing great, life humbles you and
Yep.
like brings you right back to where you are.
It
And
really
so,
does. I have been in that position many times. Yes.
Mhm.
Oh man. I will tell you, there are some days where I'm like, "Oh, I don't need to use my cane." Like I can still see right, and that's me lying to myself sometimes, but there are times where my family will go out to the car, and I'll just, like, come out after I'm done with the restroom or done with my purchase, whatever. And I will definitely walk up to the wrong car, and I have almost gotten into the wrong car, and I was like, "I don't remember mom wearing a bright yellow shirt. Like, I
Oh.
don't." And the person is just looking at me, and I'm like, "I should have been using my cane. I should have been using my cane because now they think I'm a creeper, and they're not wrong."
mm,
So, yeah.
Shoot.
Yeah. It mm, it happens a lot. So, you gotta find the humor.
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, man. Okay. So, let me ask you this then. It's been about 9 years, so you've been able to work on your communication with each other on how to say, like, "I need more help," or "I don't need help." What helped you with your communication 9 years ago when this first happened? Because I am able to communicate with my family and friends more openly. But in the beginning, I was mute. Like, I did not understand what was happening, and I hated what was happening, and I just didn't want any part of it.
Well, this is probably a weird answer, but
Love it.
intimacy, uh, intimacy means familiarity.
Right?
And so I immediately was like, we need to be intimate because that's what I was familiar with. And I didn't want to talk. My words were slurred and it
That's
just was different. And people would keep saying, well, what'd you say? And so I didn't want to say anything if you keep asking me that. And
right.
so really I'm a communicator naturally. And so I knew that we could talk through intimacy sort of, and like it just took a lot of me working on my speech and figuring it out how to verbally get it out. But you have to kind of use telepathy and those sort of things while it's happening. We know each other well enough that it did happen that way to where I may need something and she would have it in her hand handing it to me, and so it was like a beautiful moment that I fell in love with her again just from those sort of moments because no one knows you that well, you think, until it's time that they need to know you that well.
Right. Right.
Yeah. My experience of that was kind of back to my comment about curiosity.
Mhm.
He sort of became a science experiment in those early days where
Love that.
Wow.
I studied every new way that he was trying to communicate. His facial expressions were a little bit different, his tone was a little bit different, his gestures were different, his words were harder to understand. Um, so I think when you're in survival mode right after something like that happens, there's a hypervigilance that comes along with it.
Yes.
And that hypervigilance was the mechanism for a lot of our communication early on that put me in a position where I was anticipating his needs and recognizing what was going on, and that required me to just pay very, very close attention, um, to everything that was different, and pretty much everything was different. And then over time, as his recovery continued, autologic functions came first. He was learning how to regulate his breathing and swallow and regulate his temperature, and all sorts of bodily functions that don't have anything to do with communication were affected. And so communication came later. And um, as his articulation got better and as his cognition improved, his executive function improved, then we could start to get into these really interesting conversations where I realized that I still had the I still had the partner in there who I'd always had because he started talking about his brain from a third party perspective and explaining what was going on in there as though he was observing himself.
Hmm.
And that was a really interesting and helpful way that I know not every person who suffers a stroke is fortunate enough to be able to process that way. Um, but once he was able to communicate with me in that fashion, it helped deepen my ability to understand what was going on with him.
Mhm.
And we actually, I think it would be safe to say that we probably know each other better through this experience than we would have if we had stayed together without this experience. And
Yeah.
so,
No, I understand that.
yeah,
Yeah. Huh. That's so interesting. It's it's difficult though because relationships can go one of two ways, right? After a disability occurs or if you were born with it, it's always a gamble on if your partner is willing to go through this journey with you or not. And it's so interesting to hear how you both connected and worked through the things because that's not always the case. So,
in fact, I think it varies a little bit for different disabilities, but for stroke survivors in particular, 85% of relationships don't make it.
oh wow, I didn't know that. But wow,
That's
yeah, you're the
that
researcher.
that's a big
Whoa.
part of the reason why we started the company that we started is to start to shift that.
And people don't understand the consequences of that because if I was a part of that 85%, I would be a ward of the state and our eight
Mm,
kids wouldn't have a daddy. And instead, since we are together, we have a company and we're helping society and stuff. So those sort of things are the reason that Beyond This exists because we want to make sure that 84% gets down and those people are still a whole person. No pun intended,
I see
but
what you did there. Love it. No, that's such a beautiful creation that you guys have accomplished, and not everybody can do that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I congratulate you on that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, how did you come up with the name then beyond this? I'm curious.
That's all you.
well, basically because I wanted to get beyond the mentality I had when I first had the stroke.
Okay.
It takes everyone a flip.
Mhm.
Like you're sitting there and you have to make a decision to go beyond where you're sitting at. And well, for me, it's weird because I'm sitting in a wheelchair, but I had to decide that I was going to sit in this wheelchair different. And so I stood up and carried myself a different way one day. And so it took that moment to flip over. And then when we were thinking about the company, I actually named it Beyond This because that's what this does. It carries me beyond the moment I was when I was there, released from rehab and lost and confused and stuff.
I
Yeah.
also think that moment is perpetual for all of us, disability or otherwise. Um, Life is so much more meaningful and rich if we push ourselves beyond this moment, beyond these circumstances, beyond the situation that we're facing today. And something else is always possible. So, though the inception of the organization was born out of that moment, that decision that Brandon chose to live a disabled life that looked different than where he had been at that moment, we choose every day to move beyond.
Yeah. It really is an everyday decision. And it's interesting that the motivation for you both is there every day. And I appreciate that you're able to help people through this because, as you probably have witnessed in the disability community, there are individuals who are still stuck about the disability, and that's fair. I mean,
Mhm.
it's a trauma, and it's the counseling isn't always available for people to work through the disability and choose, I'm going to be different. And so it takes really strong people to do what you're doing.
And a lot of times the counseling doesn't really help you accept what's happening
Yeah.
because you have to grieve it.
Yes.
I make it as I buried myself in the backyard, that old self. And it's weird because your old self is living in your backyard, and you know that.
Yeah.
And you're this new person. And so it's like oh, I'm never chasing normal.
Right.
I'm always chasing whatever this can give me.
Mhm.
And she is my motivation. So like the whole company is built because I was like, hey, caregivers need to be taken care of. You should have been taken care of, and now let's take care of other caregivers.
Right.
And so that day to day thing is her. I wake up early before and I watch her sleep, and that's it. Is my motivation to make sure I change the world and disability and all those sort of things. And I want all those disabled couples to have that same opportunity.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean every day is easy or
Oh,
that every day is
Correct.
oh
sunshine and
no.
rainbows, even for us.
Correct.
It just means that we're making the choice to try again, even when we get discouraged. And one of the things that probably took us both, well, me longer than him, but time to reckon with is that it does nobody any good to deny your actual feelings about what you're going through or suppress the emotional process that um, going through an experience like this brings on. And it's it's so much easier to embark on that process if you have someone to be with you as
Yeah.
you do it.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's whether it's a partner or a child or a mom or whoever,
Good
all
friends.
those relationships change. And those people have the right to have hard feelings too. So when my kids came to me and said, "We're angry you had a stroke," I'm like, dude, I didn't want a stroke. Like, don't be angry
Right.
at me. But
Right.
then I had to understand that I was different. And their relationship had to change too. And so they were angry about what they lost. And so we have to kind of grieve that together and get past it and stuff like that. So it's actually enriched a lot of my kids' relationship with me too, where I think it would have been way different if I hadn't had the stroke. And it's way better now that I did have the stroke, and they see the world through a totally different light. Like understanding, well, that person shouldn't have parked there. How you gonna get out? And so when
Yes.
they get a human, I like when they're big, they won't park in that spot or take that space that covers the ramp.
Mhm.
And so like all of those things are lessons that you have to teach. Only through this life you can teach it. And so if you don't take the lessons from it and the humor from it, then you end up missing out on what could be.
And I think one more thing I just want to say on this topic before we move to something else is
Yeah.
um, there's so much power in telling your story.
Mhm. I agree.
So much power in telling your story and telling it in community with other people.
Mhm.
And just being seen and having your truth be known by other people itself is part of the process of grieving whatever it is that you lost,
Mhm.
whether that is practical aspects of the life that you were living or if it's ideas about the life you thought you would live or that grief runs in so many different directions, but telling your truth and experiencing that um sense of community with other people is so important and powerful, which is I guess the one of the core premises on which our business is built. Community is super important.
I agree. I agree. I think initially when I was first dealing with the vision loss, when I finally got connected to some of the bigger organizations, I just felt so comfortable. Like I didn't have to worry about, hey, I'm not making eye contact with my friend. Are they going to think I'm weird, or explaining all the weird nuances, it
Mhm.
just, you just have this sigh of relief, and you can just be who you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And I didn't have that for like the first couple years. I was still trying to figure out like what to do, like where to get help. And when I finally met a couple of people who deal with vision loss, I realized like, hey, actually I can do this. They're already doing it. And so then I started speaking up more and not being a mute. I was like, I just didn't have the terminology to explain what I was going through.
Mhm.
And I didn't know how to convey like certain things to my family until I started hearing how other people express things and going through what they were going through. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and
Absolutely it does.
Right?
I think that that's what Ability KC was for me.
Yeah.
Seeing people there that were like me,
Uh-huh.
and I went to Ability KC, and they treated me as if I was that football star coming through
Yes.
my high school doors. And so
Love
I
it.
was normal again. Well, I wouldn't say normal, but
Norma. I know.
I was me again.
Yeah.
And everyone there greet you and hello, Brandon. Like it's a big deal that these
Yeah.
people care that I'm there. And so the therapists I worked with were really amazing. And even with this company, Jenna Price kind of watered the seed of Beyond This and helped it bloomed into what it was. And so she just did that by conversation. And she listened and heard, and she said, "You know what? You need to help." And at that point, then I said, "Yeah, I do need to help." And I had been there a lot and thought to myself, I need to help. But I needed someone to pour that water on that seed. And
Mm-hmm.
so only I, even in the wheelchair, I can help. And so that's why she heard telling me that at Ability, which is like I'm the mascot of Ability KC at this point. And so I like love that place. It's Big Mama's house to me. Like I when I go there, those are all my aunties, and like I'm just happy to see everybody and like it's such a wonderful place. Like and miracles do happen in there all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what was weird though, to go home from Ability and still not know how to be intimate, not know how to love my kids right, and all those sort of things. So there's something in the medical gap that's missing because Ability's the best place on earth. I'm biased, but it's the best place on earth. And so like I work with these people and they help me and stuff, but it took me 4 years to hug her. And
Yeah.
I didn't even realize she needed a hug. They
Yeah.
taught me how to play board games with this hand
Okay.
and pick up pennies and all these weird things, well, things that help. So, well, I haven't really done them since I left there, but
Ah.
they taught me all these things. But no one said, "Hey, try hugging your wife." I hugged her and she broke down crying, and like it was a big moment. These arms are actually made to hug, not made to pick up pennies. And I understand they taught you in class to get my arm moving, and that's a wonderful thing. But you have to go home and treat your relationship like a relationship still. So
Right.
And
Yeah.
even with the incredible quality of care that we got in the medical community, every clinician we talk to and every client we work with recognizes what you were saying, which is there's something definitively powerful about being with others who have lived a similar journey.
Mhm.
Everyone's journey is a little bit different, but lived experience is a necessary part of the recovery process
Yes.
for exactly what you described. It takes a while to figure out the language to explain to people who don't share the experience what it is that you deal with.
Yeah.
And you come into a room of people who have similar lived experience with than as you do, and there's just a sense of a felt sense of being understood
Yes.
that doesn't require language.
Yes.
And the post discharge care continuum must include communities where lived experience is centered so people can that's part of the identity reconstruction process.
Mhm.
And lots of folks are trying
I know.
to provide support and to create those communities. Um, but nobody recovers alone.
Right.
Everybody recovers in relationship and proximity to others in their life. And so, this idea that the relationships in which recovery is happening need to also be treated as a unit of care is something that doesn't exist anywhere.
Yeah. I agree. I agree 100%. Well, we're having a great conversation, but would it be all right if we just took a quick break and maybe got some more water, coffee, whatever you need, restroom breaks? Would
Of
yeah,
that be
course.
all right?
Yes,
Okay. And then we'll just jump right back in.
all
sounds
right.
good.
All right. All right, everyone. We will be right back. Thank you so much for joining us.
Living with a disability can feel isolating, but it doesn't have to. At The Whole Person, peer support groups bring people together who truly understand. The Whole Person provides a variety of peer support groups. Brain injury group, share experiences and navigate life after your injury. Mental health group, connect with others managing anxiety, depression, and other mental health challenges. DIY life skills, build confidence and skills for independence, designed for ages 18 to 24. In addition to these, we offer specific groups for spinal cord injuries, blindness and low vision, and deaf and hard of hearing. Whatever your journey, you're not alone. To find your group and attend our next meeting, please visit thewholeperson.org/peer support or call us at 816-561-0304. Peer support at The Whole Person. Real people, real connection.
Hi, everyone. We are back. We are so excited to continue our conversation. And so I think we're just going to jump right in. And just for everyone to know, my adaptive equipment is no longer working, which is super fun. But if there's a question I'm missing, please don't hesitate to say, "Hey, let's go back to this question." Okay. So you guys are you're gonna see how blind I am.
All right.
Love it. Thank you though for working with me on that. I appreciate it.
Of
So,
course.
okay, so let's see here. I wanted to jump back in and you mentioned Ability KC. How did you even know to get connected to Ability KC?
Well, while we were at KU, they had explained to her that I could get out of KU acute rehab.
Okay.
And I was gonna break out of there one way or the other. So I was so tired of being in there every night and day. Like you get to go home and then go to ability. And so she made magic happen behind the scenes. I don't know exactly how that happened, but breaking out of there to get to ability is part of the love. It was like falling in love with your spring girlfriend at the time. And so, like, when I first arrived at ability, I was like, I'm free. And, like, just, it was, and me being me, I could ask sex questions there and, like, all of these different things. And so, ability was the free land to me in my head mentally. And
Right.
Okay, so this is back to that details thing
Yes.
that we were
yeah.
talking about earlier, right?
Yes. You're the detail person. We are not.
The way that we found out about Ability KC was through one of the people who provided care to Brandon at KU, who I believe is actually no longer there, sadly, but was one of our heroes, an OT named Alexa, who had been the person who taught us how to unlock the bed so I could lay next to Brandon when he was in inpatient treatment. That's the moment we realized that um, intuitively, most people know that touch is super instructive for healing and nervous system regulation. But part of the reason Brandon had a stroke was from severely unregulated high blood pressure.
Mm.
And when Alexa taught us how to unlock the bed so I could lay next to him after weeks and weeks and weeks in the hospital, his blood pressure went down.
Oh.
And the nurses started charting his blood pressure because when I was laying next to him, it was lower.
Mm.
And one weird thing about suffering a stroke is the injury is not, it's not super easy to determine what a person's prognosis is
Mm-hmm.
or how quickly or slowly they will recover.
Mm-hmm.
And so the news from the medical team through the course of his inpatient stay was kind of ambiguous. And we were wholly unfamiliar with what the impacts of stroke are or what to expect. Like it was a whole learning experience. And we were up to the last days um, when insurance was saying, well, time to go. And I had no idea. Like I was I was days away from delivering our youngest child,
Oh my goodness.
and I was faced with taking this guy home in a Hoyer lift. He
Mm-hmm.
had to be mechanically lifted out of the bed into his chair and to the toilet and all of
That's
that.
a lot.
He had a need for a hospital bed. Um, he was 3-person assist, so it wasn't as though I could physically help him move around myself without multiple people. And Alexa walked in, and I had a moment like a week before we were going to discharge. His parents had a conversation with me about whether he should go to a nursing home. And all the while, from the moment that the stroke happened, I knew he needed to be home in order to recover. He needed to be back in a familiar environment, back to that intimacy thing. He needed to be back with the kids, uh, into a world that felt like familiar for his brain to relax enough to start to recover.
Yeah.
And we had 2 options. We had 3 options. We could put him in a skilled nursing place. We could um, put him in outpatient treatment, or we could bring in home care to him. And Alexa walked us through those options in very clear, pragmatic detail and told me about Ability KC and strongly recommended that we pursue their outpatient treatment program because it was basically full-time therapy.
Mm.
And skilled nursing was more about like the nursing side of care and less about the therapeutic side of care, um, as would have been the case with the in-home situation. And he had a long way to go. If it wasn't for that recommendation, we'd have never found Ability KC, and Brandon wouldn't be where he is today in terms of his recovery.
Right. Yeah.
So I think that the interdisciplinary approach is critical, and they do it better than anybody else.
Mm. That is so interesting how those connections are made. And we were talking, off camera about how hard it was to find resources for myself when I was dealing with my disability. It just you ask so many strangers, and then all of a sudden somebody just, oh, you don't know about this.
Yeah,
I feel like you had a
totally.
similar situation.
Yeah. And then the discharge experience from inpatient care to outpatient care was one thing, right? I mentioned being pregnant with our youngest. So we
Hmm.
got out of
Hmm.
inpatient care. We stayed home for the weekend. We got out on Thursday. We went home for the weekend. On Tuesday morning, I had the baby.
Oh,
Well,
wow.
we got out for the weekend. We went to inpatient intake on Monday. Then I had the baby on Tuesday. And then he was in care, um, I think 4 days a week to start, um, for basically the whole day for
Wow.
many, many, many months.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and in from any facility that you discharge, when you've had an inpatient or a long outpatient stay like that, they give you a packet of papers
Yes.
and they say, go to these
Here you
appointments,
go.
take these medicines. Here's who you call for the wheelchair and the DME providers. Here's a couple options to find equipment that your insurance doesn't cover.
Right?
They did family training with us to make sure the kids knew if he fell out of his chair, we were going to be in a pickle. We probably need to call an ambulance.
Okay.
And good luck,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And the American Stroke Foundation, there was some resources there which were great, and I'm not denigrating any of that,
Right.
but the thing that um, still was such that huge gap as we were talking about earlier is there's it's so lonely. You
Yes.
think that it feels like you're the only person because though most everyone in the world is touched by disability at some point,
Mhm.
when you go through it, you don't know those people.
Right.
And um, so, what we have envisioned for Beyond This is to join forces with those providers and create the bridge between that folder with printed out papers that's sort of like boots you out the door and says good luck
Yeah.
to this ongoing experience that's housed in a digital way that people can come to and come back to and come back to again, that is ever evolving and aggregates some of those resources that everyone's desperate to find, and at minimum can connect folks with others who have lived it, um, to kickstart that process of figuring out who your people are and how you're gonna move forward.
Right. Yeah. That it's we've talked about how it's a big gap, but I mean, sometimes you get told about the information quickly after a situation, and sometimes it could be a couple of years before you finally realize
Yeah.
what resources. So,
Yep.
this is amazing that you're trying to build a better bridge, I want to say, for
Mhm.
this.
Mhm.
And I think it's going to help a lot of people. I'm sure it already has.
I sure hope so.
I'm betting it has.
Mhm.
Mm. What a crazy situation that
Yeah. Feels like a lifetime ago now.
right? And it's just like, "Oh, I was so young when this happened." And
Yeah.
Go big or go home, though, right? So,
yeah, yeah. Oh, Lord. Okay, okay. So let me look at some of the questions here because I wanna make sure I'm not forgetting anything. And please jump in if I'm
Mhm.
I'm I'm missing it.
Yeah.
So let's see here. We talked about that one. Okay. Uh, okay. How does the caregiver role unintentionally change relationship dynamics? And what are some ways couples can prote- protect romance while still supporting each other? So,
Mhm.
not a strong reader. I apologize, but okay. So, I want to ask maybe, and tell me if I'm asking this. Just correct my terminology, please.
Sure.
Um, Okay, so the stroke happened 9 years ago. So when did you start feeling more like a partner in the relationship instead of the caregiver? Because you jump into caregiver mode right away. My parents still do it to me, and I'm just like, "Guys, I can do this," like
Yeah.
so when did that transition kinda snap back for you?
The only terminology that I feel compelled to change is
Yes.
the snapback part
Yes.
because it
Thank
doesn't
you.
really snap.
I regret my choice of words, and you are correct.
I think that's the challenge is that it requires awareness and intentionality and practice and negotiation all the time. Even today, 9 years later, it's so hard to just context switch and turn your brain from one mode to the other in a moment when the moment demands something different because our brains just prefer to work in routine, right?
Mhm.
And so to answer your initial question more directly, when did that transition start to happen? There was certainly like a period of time at the beginning where I was very much mostly caregiver, right? When he could move his right thumb pretty much, and that was about it. And I went from having a fully functioning partner one day to having another new baby and a husband who was functioning effectively like an infant. And
Okay.
I was responsible suddenly for everything. And that persisted for a couple of years. So this guy is a um, hopeless and eternal optimist. And thankfully, because it made this whole process much easier. A lot of stroke survivors, I'm forgetting the scientific term for this phenomenon, but many people acquire a condition where they easily cry or they easily laugh, and it's usually
Okay.
one or the other,
Okay.
and we call it stroke laugh,
Okay.
and he laughs instead of cries. When something's hard, when something's funny, when
When it hurts.
when it hurts, when he's
Yeah.
in pain, he laughs, and he
Yeah.
laughs uncontrollably. But that eternal optimism and that decision that he made to claw his way back to being my partner, um, led him to resist moving into a power wheelchair for almost 3 years.
Mm.
So for the first 3 years, he literally could not navigate in our home without someone moving him, physically moving him from one place to another in the manual wheelchair because his left side deficits were significant enough that he couldn't maneuver it. And so probably for the first 3 years or so, I was in pretty much caregiver mode all the time, making sure everything was happening. Um, and then I convinced him to trial run a power chair. He didn't want to try it out because he thought it was gonna prevent him from trying hard to get back to walking.
Yeah.
And
I can understand that.
didn't have any real concept about what else would be enabled or what could change from taking on a power wheelchair, which, by the way, he rightly was not issued one when he was discharged because it would have been like catastrophic. He wouldn't have been able to control it.
Okay. Yeah.
The thing goes faster than I can run. So, um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but once he got the power chair, so we did a trial run. We went through the wheelchair clinic process, which is an interesting thing.
Yeah.
And we got a power wheelchair approved, even though you're only supposed to get a chair every 5 years.
I did know that.
And so they allowed us to transition him from that manual chair to the power chair about 3 years in, and he um, became a different person almost overnight. He was well, first of all, as you can tell, I'm sitting in a chair and he's almost a foot higher than I am sitting.
Mhm.
So moving from the manual chair to the power chair lifted him up physically to be closer to eye level to other people instead of like,
Yeah.
looking at
Yeah.
midsections. And he was able to leave the house on his own. He was able to get to the kitchen on his own. He could stand up at the counter and start to try to cook. He loves to cook.
Yeah?
Excellent chef sitting next to me.
Woo!
And so a lot of the things that comprised his identity as my partner became within reach again
Mm,
with that shift.
mhm.
And it was then that I started to see the evidence that left me feeling comfortable to have expectations of him as a partner again. Because in the early stage, I was quite concerned with just protecting his brain capacity to focus on getting better. And I didn't want to burden him with my side of things because I wasn't dealing with the challenges that he was dealing with. And by comparison, it's easy for caregivers to be like, "Oh man, like I'm going to put my needs on hold."
Right, right.
I don't regret doing that, but I do now in hindsight fully understand the importance and the value of also acknowledging my needs in the process. And when we got to the point where he was tangibly understanding that his contributions as my partner were reachable again for him, that motivated him even more.
Mm.
And I'll let you add anything that you experienced in that, and then I'll share the last bit of
Well,
it, which there was a moment. There was a moment that we had that really crystallized it. That's the closest that we got to the snapping part you mentioned. Um, but I'll share
I'll
that after
say
that.
that the the hospital actually trains you to be a patient and a caregiver
Okay.
by having that button. I had a button. Nurses came to
Oh,
my bed, delivered me whatever I wanted. That's not married life.
that's not
You
realistic.
go home. We have 8 kids, and I'm like, I'm hungry, and she's like, yeah, and she has to cook it and do all these different things. But I'm like, no, I'm hungry, and the red button brought me food when that was happening, and so they trained me to be a patient, and I actually decided to shift us to care partner well before she was there. And
Mhm.
so I was like, well, dude, like you're my partner. I stop being my mama because that's what it feels like. And so I had planned a date one time. And I mean, I covered every detail on this date. And I put my pills in my pocket and all these things so that I could be her husband that night. We go out, we have a great time, and then on the way home, she's like drawing circles on my hands and stuff. So this is going to a good spot. And we get home, get in the bed, and she asks me about medicine. And she might as well cuss me out because I did not want to be a patient this whole evening. And so I just rolled over and said, we can go to bed. And ended the night that way because of that. And there comes a point in every relationship after trauma, you have to fire the patient and the caregiver and you have to rehire the partnership. And so if you don't do that, then you are stuck in the cycle of what the medical system kind of trained you to be like.
Yeah, no, I that's an interesting way of saying it. Like the hospital trained you and you're exactly correct. Yeah. You're you nailed it.
Yeah.
Wow,
So
okay.
that conditioning is hard to overcome,
Yeah.
especially when you practice it and you live it every day for several years. Then when it's like you wake up one day and you're like, "Oh, wow, I really want my husband back or I really want my wife back." It's like work to unlearn those habits.
Mhm.
And I mentioned the importance of acknowledging uh, your emotional needs and your grieving process. And for me, what I didn't realize for several years is that that suppressed grief about what I thought our life was going to be like and the partner that I planned to have turned into anger because I didn't process it for a few years. And through a period of pretty intentional self work, as I was like trying to figure out how to shift our whole family out of survival mode back into more thriving mode and recognizing that it needed to start with me, I started excavating some of those suppressed feelings. And there was a moment when I had a bit of a breakdown and um, I really needed Brandon to be my husband in that moment, and I sat down on the side of the bed next to him, and I was like, "I'm really angry with you." I didn't use those words. I might have been a little bit more dramatic.
That's fair.
Um, I'm having all these struggles because I'm mad about this life that we have to live because you didn't take care of yourself. And he handled that conversation as uh gently and compassionately as I could have possibly hoped for him to handle it, exactly as my partner should have. And it was a moment when I realized he was ready to be that again. He might have been ready for a long time before that, but I couldn't see it until that moment. And it was a little before the halfway mark in our journey now. So I kind of think of our recovery over the last 9 years in about three acts of a play, kind of.
Okay.
And that felt like the beginning of the second act. Oops. When we really started working on what does it look like to be partners.
Mhm.
But even still, um, just maybe twice already today, he's like, "I got it. You don't have to do that."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Um, I understand that in a way because when you're even trying to date somebody like right after you have a disability occurrence,
Mhm.
it's not easy.
No.
And you really have to be able to get right with yourself before you can communicate like I'm struggling with this. I need you to stop treating me like a patient.
Mhm.
And how do you say all that without hurting somebody's feelings, but also like standing up for yourself and
Mhm.
all the things.
Yeah, and they're busy giving you their best and their all and their
Exactly.
heart, and I'm like, well, thanks, but I need you to give me a little less, and
Yeah,
so it's a touchy dance that you're putting
it
on me.
is.
So
It is. And even with, friends sometimes like beyond is it's like, "Oh, actually I can do this." But
Mhm.
I thank you for helping. I appreciate you thinking about this. And it took me a long time to be as open as I am about communicating things about my disability.
Mhm.
It takes a long time.
Yeah. I am curious about your experience. One of the things that I've noticed for us is that the moments when something could be hurtful, a conversation could feel hurtful or might feel delicate to navigate, those kinds of conversations are easier if we have had a conversation about those kinds of conversations before they happen.
Yeah,
When you anticipate like these kind of moments make me feel this way.
right.
And I understand like because then the emotional like reactivity part of it is not present,
Mhm.
and it's better if those conversations can happen before you get to the moments because then there's understanding going in. It's also helpful if after things are settled, you have a conversation afterwards so that you're more on the same page next time. Um, have you found that to be true for yourself too? Or do you feel like it's hard to find the right time to talk about here's what I need from you now, like an update for your friends that you haven't seen in a while or for somebody new that you're seeing or something like that?
Yeah, no, I do agree that having the conversation after or before the situation is more helpful. But I still struggle with it sometimes
Mhm.
because you don't want to hurt the person's feelings because to them they're thinking that they're helping you, but maybe I want to remain more independent in the situation than is being allowed.
Mhm.
And so I'm like, I have to see the situation happen a couple of times
Mm.
to know that like that's their mindset. But if it happens like once or twice, I'm just kind of like, okay, I'll let that pass.
Yeah.
But for me, I very much like to educate people about vision loss and stuff, and that's a role I take on myself. And so I've just even being employed in the disability world with like vision loss, I do find myself explaining it every day and explaining more about this is how I work. If I need your help, I will ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's a little different with my family, um, because those are your people,
Mm-hmm.
and my mom and dad, they're so funny. They'll always be like, "There's a curb," and I'm like, "Yeah, I can still see that." Like I talk different to them, and I'm like, "Yeah, that's what my cane is for." Like I'm using my cane.
Yeah.
But I know that they mean it in a good way, and they're trying to be helpful. Because at one point I did need that help,
Yeah.
and so I think it's hard for them to transition out, and they have, but they still fall back on that. They're like, "Oh, curb," and I'm like, "Yes, thank you."
Yeah. Got it.
Or they'll be like, "Oh, hey, look over there," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's great." And then my grandma, I love my grandma so much. She is the funniest grandma you could ever have. She'll be like, "Hey, look over there, Haley," and she's like, "Oh no, never mind, you can't see that." And I'm like, "Oh, thanks, grandma." And she's almost gonna be 100. So like
Yeah.
you can't be mad at her. It's adorable. And
Yeah.
then my sister, she's a nurse, so she sees a different side of all of this.
Mm.
And when you're around people you're comfortable with, sometimes you let them help you with things that you can do. Um and there are times where my family, I will do that with my family because it is exhausting every day doing things for yourself, just like in a regular life, right?
Sure.
But my sister will be like, "No, you do it," and I'm like, "Huh? Huh?" And I'm like, "Who are you?" And she's my younger sister, so I'm not, like I'm supposed to take care of her, but we have a balance.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it depends on the situation, you
Mm.
know?
Mhm.
And I think there's a thin line between sympathy and empathy.
Yes.
And so I talk to all the therapists about this. I don't want to feel your sympathy.
Right.
And if you have genuine empathy, you can help me and it'll
Right.
be okay and stuff. But as soon as it turns into sympathy, we don't really have a relationship. We have you feeling bad for me, and that's not okay.
Yes. And sometimes with that, I don't know if there's a term for this, so maybe you can uh step in and help me with that. But when people are trying to help you, and like maybe I have my sister with me, but I'm using my cane, and they will talk to my sister instead
Mm.
of me. Does
Mhm.
that happen to you as well?
It does. And
I
I
hate it so much.
and I
Yeah.
will say, like, well, I'm not here because I want them to understand what just happened
Right.
in this sort of situation. And so, but what happens now a lot of the times is everyone remembers me.
Yeah.
I'm the one in the wheelchair. Oh yeah, what's your name again? Is what happens. They meet both of us, but they remember the guy in the wheelchair
Oh
and who's wearing
no.
the hat all the time, but then they never remember her. And so
Yeah. Yeah.
This point that you're making about, I think most of the time it's just total lack of awareness,
Oh yes.
ignorance,
Oh
and
yeah.
there is a name for it, but I can't think of it either.
I'm gonna
So
have to
we'll just let that
research.
go.
Yes.
Um, what I wanted to share though is, uh, we were just talking earlier about universal design and how impactful it is when you walk into a place that is
Color coded.
properly thought about for
Yeah.
people um, who need it.
Me.
Yes, us.
Yes.
So there is a human component to that too that gets left out by businesses all the time. Um, and one of the arms of Beyond This that we are launching is a certification for businesses, particularly those who play the role of creating opportunities for reintegration into social life for
Mhm.
people with disabilities, like restaurant owners,
Mhm.
um, sporting venues,
Mhm.
places where people go to have a date or to be with friends or family for a celebration or um, just live, to be human in the community again. Um, wherein we want to recognize businesses who go above and beyond ADA compliance and train their staff not to speak to the care partner instead of the person with a disability, or at least ask
Right.
the people who have trained their staff to not um, to remove a chair when a
Mhm.
wheelchair user comes in to sit at a table, not offer a booth to someone sitting at a in a wheelchair. Um, there's just some common sense. Well, they feel like common sense to us because we live it, right? But a lot of people just don't think about it or don't know. And we believe that the disability community here in Kansas City should have a way to know which businesses are being recognized for going above and beyond. So, um, that that human component, the way that employees in these businesses interact with disabled folks is one of the things that's a part of our certification process.
I love that. Um, while you were explaining that, I feel like the grapevine in the disability community, we
Mhm.
talk about, oh, this place was not accessible. You know how it is? And I think that it would be good to do exactly what you're saying because the rest of the world needs to know this too,
Yeah.
not just the disability community.
Yeah.
And so that's amazing. We should get connected more on that so that we can help you with that, I think.
Mhm.
We do quite a bit of trainings here for people who are deaf and vision impaired. So,
Incredible.
yeah,
Yeah.
we'll have to get connected and
And a lot of it is based off of if I can come to your establishment and feel like a human,
right.
rather than know that I'm in a wheelchair or it's some special treatment because I'm in a wheelchair, then that's what going beyond this as for establishment is. There are certain dates I've been on and we've had an amazing time, and I didn't even, oh, I know because my butt hurts, but I don't really know that I'm in a wheelchair by what they made me do and stuff.
Right. No, I totally get that. I'm sorry. That was so great. Yeah. No, I mean that's the reality of it. Yeah. Yeah, that's great.
I think it's top of mind for me, so I'm going to say this. You can keep it or not.
Yeah.
The travel that we've done recently to other cities in the country
Mhm.
and then coming back home
Mhm.
made us recently really reflect on how, compared to some other places in the country, Kansas City is actually really friendly
Yeah.
for disabled folks. And
Yes.
um, now getting integrated into the entrepreneur community in Kansas City and um, bringing along that perspective of comparing our community to some others that we've visited um, makes it feel like an opportunity that we have here to really create something special for modeling what it looks like as a city and as a community to um, operate in a truly inclusive way. Um, and I think we're far ahead of some other places that we've been.
Yeah, I'll agree. I'll agree. And then there are other places that I think we could benefit from learning from them as well. So
For sure.
but yes, I have noticed exactly what you're talking about. And I feel like if things aren't super accessible around the city does communicate back with uh its people.
Mhm.
They've been working with me on something and I really appreciate the interest that they had and like the go get it attitude and it's
Yeah.
such a small thing for them to worry about like what I'm talking to them about, but it's so huge for the blind community. And so it's been an interesting journey. So I
Yeah.
yeah, it's great. Hmm. Have you guys ever thought about doing like public speaking events about this? I know you kind of do a little bit because you've done that here at our facility.
Yeah.
But do you guys have that on your list of things to accomplish?
Yeah, we were actually just at the Kaufman Bi-State Stroke Conference.
Oh, okay.
It
Uh,
was sponsored by
but
Ability KC.
yeah,
and
Ability invited us, so that makes sense again. But we spoke there, and we are in talks with a lot of different facilities
Good.
about coming to speak to clients and to therapists,
Yes.
because it's kind of a learning experience for everybody, just in those realms. And like what we talk about is different than most things. And it's interesting. She had said it earlier, but like people bringing up what you're experiencing, it makes it way easier to talk about than you being the one. I'm the one. I was built for this, to start talking about it, but not everybody else is built to start talking about it. But it's okay joining the conversation after it's talked about.
Right.
Yeah. So, and I think our initial focus, since we're kind of just getting this thing off the ground, has been with practitioners and
Right.
students and
Right.
clients directly. Um, but the experience of living in an interabled life is relevant in business contexts and educational contexts.
Right.
And like we said earlier, just about everybody in the world will eventually be touched by disability in some way or another. So, um, telling our story and um, creating containers for these kinds of conversations is exactly what we're about.
I love that so much. And I look forward to seeing what you both accomplish. So you'll have to keep us updated,
Oh,
okay?
of course we will.
Okay. Let me ask you this then. What would be a best way for people to reach out to you if they wanted some help or some guidance? What's easiest for you both?
Um, we can be reached by email at connect@beyondthis.org. You can find us on our website, which is beyondthis.org. And we're both on LinkedIn, which is a great way to connect with us individually.
Okay. Okay. And we'll put that up on our screen so that everybody can have access to that. But
And the best way is to contact your facility and have them contact us, and then we can get something situated that way.
okay. Okay. Um yeah, because you're getting your name out in the community to the service providers and caseworkers. So yeah, okay.
Yep.
Okay, good. I'm so happy for you guys. This is exciting, and I'm so excited to see how this turns out. So
Thank you so much for having us.
you're
Yeah, and
welcome.
Kansas City has really embraced us.
Yes.
We just got introduced for the cohort at Keystone
Oh,
as one of the founders. And so facilities all over invited us in. And so it's been really wonderful how much love and reception we've got from the city. And I actually love Kansas City as a whole.
yes.
And so it's just pretty amazing.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. That is so great. Oh my goodness. Well, so you'll have to come back on sometime and just give us some updates from time to time. So, um, I just I will share your contact information with people who call in and ask if that's okay.
Absolutely.
And if there's any talking gigs I can get you connected with, I will definitely send them your way as well.
Fantastic. Thank you
Ah,
so much for
thank
having us
you.
today. It's been great.
Thank you for being vulnerable with me today. Not easy, and I think just even talking about it now has made it a little bit easier for myself. So thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Well, everyone, we are going to end our session today, and I look forward to seeing you on our next episode. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Haley Korf. I am the vision impaired host for the whole podcast. If you want to like and subscribe, that would be most helpful. We would love it. We just want to get our information out to the community so we can provide support to anyone who needs it. If you want to take a look at our calendar, we do have that on our website. That will show all the peer support groups that we offer. You are more than welcome to give us a call too. We would be more than happy to answer any questions, but it is all listed on the calendar. Take a look at it, enjoy our new website, and thank you so much for tuning in.